Welcome back to our channel, where we present updates and concealed tales about royal family. We are happy to offer the following news. Harry and Meghan lost everything. It's worse than ever. The call that Montecito had to make never arrived. Although Thomas Markle was recovering from the amputation of his leg, which was a life-altering procedure that followed a stroke that rendered him unable to function, there was complete silence emanating from his daughter's estate in California. And diplomat from the United States Embassy delivered a message, which was a frigid dispatch that sources close to the family described as a reading of the Riot Act. This was in place of a private word of comfort. It was the final and most violent severance of a bond, an act that was so openly cruel that it sent a shudder through the carefully crafted edifice of compassion that is the Sussex brand. The profound and perhaps deadly conflict that lies at the core of Harry and Meghan's post-royal business was brought to light by this one act more than by any other particular conduct. During the time that they were preaching a gospel of global empathy from their sun-drenched enclave, a story of personal ruthlessness was gaining traction. This narrative now poses a threat to completely consume their American dream. As the royal family watched from the other side of the Atlantic, they realized that this was more than just a family tragedy that was being reported in the tabloids. On the ramparts of the kingdom itself, there was a fire that sounded the alarm 5 times. The disappearing presence of royalty. A triumphal return to form, a show of the old magic was supposed to be the scene that was intended to take place. It was planned that Prince Harry, sometimes known as the People's Prince, would pay a visit to a firehouse, which is a traditional royal engagement that is designed to generate easy headlines and warm photo opportunities. During his previous existence, a visit of this nature would have been a carefully planned and orchestrated affair. Palace advance staff would have spent weeks working to ensure that a respectable and enthusiastic audience was present to receive the king's son. They would have coordinated with local officials, provided information to the press, and worked to ensure that the crowd was present. The atmosphere would have been filled with the distinct spirit that surrounds a senior working royal, which is a combination of respect, enthusiasm, and the authority that comes from the institution. On the other hand, the magic was no longer present in the harsh light of Southern California. There were not many people present, and the media's attention was quiet. Insiders said that the gathering had the same uninteresting and unpleasant vibe as a meet and greet between a municipal councilman and his constituents, rather than a prince gracing his subjects. A severe shock was stated to have occurred for Harry as a result of the encounter. It was a glaring and visual proof of a dreadful fact that he had been gradually coming to terms with ever since his much-touted freedom flight from Britain. The authority that he possessed was never completely his own. It was borrowed, which was a mirror of the institution that had been around for 1,000 years and that he had publicly disdained and abandoned. This realization, which is just beginning to dawn, is the primary tragedy of Prince Harry's contemporary situation. He was under the impression that his personal charisma, his well-known name, and the star power of his wife would be sufficient to help him establish a global empire. A fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of royal influence was present in his mind. It is not a skill set that can be transferred to other situations. Rather, it is the result of a huge, complex, and old mechanism. The star power of the royal family is generated by the state occasions, the military uniforms, the palace balconies, and the unspoken constitutional weight of the constitutional authority of the crown. Without that machinery, a prince is nothing more than a celebrity. And in Hollywood, celebrities are little more than a commodity, with their value being susceptible to the cruel whims of public opinion and the profits they make at the box office. Historians of the royal family have pointed out that Prince Harry is not the first royal to make such a disastrous error of judgment. A man who anticipated the attention due to a king, but possessed only the hollowed-out title of a past king, the Duke of Windsor spent decades traversing the social circuits of Europe and America after he abdicated his position as King of England. In the same way as Harry is now, he came to the realization that once you leave the walls of the castle, the deference vanishes, and it is replaced by a transactional curiosity that swiftly fades away. The trip to the firehouse was more than just a botched picture opportunity. It was a public demonstration of how Harry's regal aura was being stripped away. According to the reports, it was at that very moment when the prince's eyes, which had previously been closed due to the euphoric surge of escape, started to open up to the frightening reality of his new life. He was no longer a representation of a nation. He was merely another famous face vying for relevance. And his brand was deteriorating with each public appearance that he made that was unsuccessful. A high-priority monarchy in action. On the other side of the ocean, in the quiet halls of Buckingham Palace and Clarence House, every error that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex make is scrutinized with an intensity that is on the verge of obsession. Contrary to what some people might believe, this is not a matter of settling scores within the family. Maintaining the existence of the institution is at stake. A sensitive and existential struggle to define the royal family's position in the 21st century is currently being waged by the royal family, which is currently under the rule of King Charles III. A rogue, commercialized branch of the family that generates a continual stream of negative headlines from California is the last thing that the state needs. The situation that the palace is in is unmatched in the annals of history. Edward VIII was practically banished after he abdicated his throne because the media landscape of the time period made it difficult for him to cause harm to the monarchy from a very remote location. It is now possible for the Sussexes to operate with a worldwide media platform, which enables them to publish broadsides that can travel around the world in a matter of minutes. It is also important to note that they continue to hold their titles, which are their most valuable possessions. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex is a couple. It is not enough to simply call them names. They are styles that have been bestowed upon them by the sovereign, which firmly binds them to the crown. According to the official website of the royal family, this relationship is made rather tangible. A site for the Duke of Sussex can be found there, tucked away amid the profiles of other royals who are now employed. According to a courtier, it is a umbilical cord that cannot be readily severed. This is how it is characterized. This serves as a continual and formal reminder that the actions of a couple who are chasing multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and attending parties in Hollywood are institutionally related to the King of England. It is not simply that every perceived blunder, every professional failure, and every questionable association reflects on Harry and Meghan. It also tarnishes the crown by extension. Constitutional scholars have referred to the current scenario as a crisis that is unfolding slowly. A carefully maintained illusion of dignity, obligation, and political neutrality is the foundation upon which the power of the monarchy is constructed by symbolic means. By virtue of the fact that they are business entities, the Sussexes dispel the illusion that previously existed. They are making an effort to generate revenue from the brand of an organization whose worth is based on its status as an institution that is elevated above the sleazy business of commerce. Because of this, the palace is being forced to maintain a state of constant defensive vigilance. According to those with knowledge of the situation, every public appearance and every business transaction is studied, not because of the implications it may have for Harry and Meghan, but because of the potential impact it could have on the monarchy. There is a state of affairs that is exhausting, frustrating, and ultimately unsustainable, which raises the agonizing question of whether the king will eventually be forced to take the nuclear option of stripping the Sussexes of their titles. This would be an act that would be seen as both a tragic failure of the family and a necessary act of institutional self-preservation. The Kardashian Conundrum and the Hollywood Gambiting Act. A birthday party for Kris Jenner, the matriarch of the Kardashian family and the brain behind the Kardashian company, was the invitation that was considered to be a golden ticket in the world of American celebrity. It was obvious that Harry and Meghan were making a strategic move by attending the event. They were making an effort to establish themselves at the very core of entertainment power in Hollywood. According to reports, the palace, on the other hand, was met with a feeling of profound dismay upon hearing the news. A disastrous clash of brands, a public declaration of principles that are completely foreign to the House of Windsor, was portrayed by the image of the king's son and his wife rejoicing with the stars of a reality television dynasty. One single occurrence perfectly highlights the cultural divide that exists between the society that the Sussexes have left behind and the world that they are attempting to conquer with all their might. 1,000 years of history, tradition, and carefully nurtured mystique have been used to create the brand that is associated with the British monarchy. A sense of prudence, public duty, and an impression of being above the fray are the currency that it uses. Although it has achieved tremendous success, the Kardashian brand is the complete opposite of this. The exchange of entire exposure, unrelenting self-promotion, and the complete monetization of private life is the currency of this system. In the view of the establishment, the fact that a duke and duchess are so enthusiastically embracing the latter is a fundamental devaluation of the former. This is a textbook example of brand dilution, according to public relations strategists. The royal status of the Sussexes is the distinctive selling pitch that they bring to the international market. One thing that sets them apart from any other celebrity marriage is the fact that they have a tie to history and some sort of fairy tale element. By integrating themselves so intimately with the apparatus of contemporary fame, they run the risk of diminishing the very distinctiveness that they possess. According to a particular analyst, you cannot be a symbol of ancient tradition on Monday and a guest star in the Kardashian universe on Tuesday. The two identities are mutually destructive. The public becomes confused, the mystique evaporates, and you are left with just another celebrity brand competing for attention in an already saturated market. Meghan, who has been a veteran of the Hollywood environment, is said to consider these maneuvers to be crucial for networking and survival, according to sources. It is inconceivable to believe that one would decline an invitation extended by Kris Jenner in a world that is predicated on connections and visibility. This is the way that the game is played. This perspective, on the other hand, displays a fundamental misunderstanding of, or possibly a disrespect for, the nature of the institution that she married into. An example of a brand that should not be cross-promoted is the royal family. The entity in question is constitutional. The palace is concerned that the Sussexes, in their pursuit of financial independence and American importance, are not seeing their royal title as a lifetime obligation, but rather as seed cash for a new endeavor. This is the anxiety that is prevalent within the palace system. They are starting to realize that the problem is that the more they spend that capital, the less of it they have left over. This is the dilemma, Archwell's door that can turn at any moment. In both the business world and the world of nonprofit organizations, there is no more significant warning sign than a high rate of employee turnover. An internal instability, a lack of leadership, or an unattainable mission are all strong indications that this is the case. According to this criterion, Archwell, the post-royal enterprise that the Sussexes have established, is in a state of serious failure. The departure of Meredith Maines, who was apparently their 12th publicist, was not only another resignation, rather it was a signal of a profound and systemic disorder that existed throughout the organization. This is not a junior member of the staff. She is a high-level communications executive, the kind of professional who is hired to navigate complex crises and build long-term strategies for reputational management. She was only in office for a little over a year. Following her departure, she was followed by a series of additional departures, one of which being the recent parting ways with Method Communications, a public relations business based in the United States, after only 7 months of employment. This deliberately neutral phrasing speaks volumes to those who are inside the sector. The official comments that have accompanied these departures have been models of bland, boilerplate civility. These announcements have included phrases such as "grateful for their contributions" and "wish them well." The situation with the customers had reached a point where it was no longer possible to continue working with them. This is the equivalent of a quiet scream in the workforce. The organization is described as being rudderless, hampered by a lack of clear vision, and dealing with clients that are notoriously tough to manage, according to sources close to the staff members who have left their positions. One of the most common criticisms that is thrown at Meghan is that she does not listen to the counsel of professionals. She has claimed to believe that she has a better understanding of the media game than the seasoned specialist that she hires, because she has successfully navigated the hazardous waters of Hollywood as an actress. Public relations professionals are paid to provide guidance, which is then reportedly ignored, leaving them to clean up the aftermath from decisions that were against to their best interests. This creates an impossible dynamic for public relations professionals. There are catastrophic practical repercussions that result from the frequent turnover of staff. The destruction of institutional memory, the prevention of the formation of any clear long-term strategy, and the sending of a signal to the outside world that Archewell is an unstable and unreliable partner are all consequences of this action. There is a tendency for potential collaborators, large contributors, and media organizations to become cautious. There is a growing sense that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are professionally toxic. This is a reputation that is extremely challenging to dispel in the realms of philanthropy and entertainment, which thrive on tight relationships. The fact that they have apparently decided to stop looking for a replacement for Maines and instead choose to have a director headquartered in the United Kingdom handle worldwide communications raises more problems. Is this a result of a strategic shift, or have they simply become unhireable, compelled to retreat and control their own spiraling public image because no top-tier professional is willing to take on the risk? The revolving door at Archewell is not merely a problem with personnel. It is also an indication that the vessel is taking on water, as the captains appear to be either unable or unwilling to listen to the crew's concerns. On the current brink of a foundation, the Sussex business looks to be experiencing a much more serious issue than the public relations disasters and the staffing chaos that have been occurring. This crisis appears to be happening within the financial and legal core of the operation. The recent covert rebranding of its philanthropic arm from Archewell Foundation to Archewell Philanthropies has caused alarm bells to ring among those who are knowledgeable about issues pertaining to nonprofit organizations and financial professionals. On the surface, it could appear to be a rather slight modification in semantics. However, when viewed in the context of repeated rumors and regulatory filings, it appears to be a desperate attempt to avoid a legal catastrophe that is on the horizon. According to the law of the United States, nonprofit organizations that are registered under Section 501(c)(3) are required to submit an annual tax return, which is referred to as a Form 990. This document provides transparency regarding finances by providing information regarding activities, expenditures, and income. If this form is not submitted for 3 years in a row, the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, will automatically revoke the organization's tax-exempt status. This is a consequence of that failure. Not only is this a legislative death sentence for a charity, but it is also not a penalty that may be decided upon at will. Over the course of several months, there have been rumors circulating that Archewell has been late with its files. Legal experts are of the opinion that the timing of the name change, which occurred as the company was getting closer and closer to this crucial deadline of 3 years, is very suspicious by them. Creating a new legal structure in order to get away from the issues that were caused by the previous one is a strategy that is occasionally utilized by struggling entities in order to effectively restart. The move has been characterized by the Sussexes as a planned downsizing, but the context suggests that it may have been a forced closure, a tactic to preempt an imminent and very embarrassing revocation of their status by the Internal Revenue Service, IRS. This brings up questions that are both profound and harmful. If what has been reported is accurate, it indicates that the organization in question possesses an astounding level of administrative incompetence for an organization of this profile. Alternatively, and this is a more concerning possibility, it may imply that there is an attempt to conceal financial activity or that there is no such attempt. This is a particularly painful blow for Prince Harry, who's been through a lot. Since the beginning of his public life, the aspect of his persona that has garnered the most praise and recognition has been his charitable efforts, most notably the Invictus Games. It was his way of carrying on the heritage of service that his mother had established. It would be a source of unspeakable personal and public humiliation for him to go through the process of having his own foundation fail under the cloud of financial mismanagement and the possibility of not complying with legal requirements. The worst allegations that have been directed against him and his wife would be validated if this were to occur. These criticisms posit that they are long on talk, but disastrously short on action. For Archwell, the probable implosion of the company is not simply a failure in economics. It is also a failure in the fundamental mission that was intended to justify their separation from the royal family. The Unforgiven, a reckoning to the person and the public. When it comes to the brutal court of public opinion, there is no offense that is condemned more harshly than the perceived abandoning of family. There is no other issue that has become the Achilles heel of Meghan Markle's public persona and, by extension, the entire Sussex brand. This issue has become the Achilles heel more than any other issue. A tragic family story has been transformed into a compelling and everlasting narrative of hypocrisy as a result of the long and terrible estrangement that she has with her father, Thomas Markle. A father who is now elderly and seriously ill has frequently and publicly asked for reconciliation. The specifics are horrific and have received a lot of attention. A daughter who has answered with a stony silence or, even worse, with legalistic communications that have been given through intermediaries. When compared to her public agenda, this private behavior stands in stark contrast to it. The principles of compassion, mental well-being, and humanitarianism have served as the foundation upon which Meghan has constructed her business. In her speech, she discusses the healing of generational trauma and the construction of a better and more compassionate world. On the other hand, these declarations are regarded as meaningless by a sizable segment of the general public because she has chosen not to show compassion to her own sick father. One could argue that this is a self-inflicted wound of catastrophic proportions, and public image gurus would agree with this assessment. Because of this, a fundamental contradiction is produced, which cannot be resolved whatsoever. It is impossible to properly present yourself as a global beacon of compassion while yet being perceived as cruel to your own blood as a person. It gives detractors the most powerful and emotionally resonant line of attack they can possibly have, one that breaks beyond any political or cultural dispute and hits at a fundamental human level. A lot of things, including professional mistakes, bad public relations, and even allegations of luxury, can be forgiven by the public. The appearance of a heart that is frigid is something that it finds far more difficult to forgive. This personal reckoning has significant repercussions for the general public. As a result, the moral authority that the Sussexes are attempting to assert is irreparably damaged. The bond that she has with her father will now be the lens through which many people will see every speech that she gives about kindness and every endeavor that she takes for a good cause. During the slow-motion collapse of their brand, it has become the cherry on top, as one critic put it. Not only is it a very personal tragedy that has spread into a public relations disaster, but it is also an unforced error from which there appears to be no recovery. The dwindling crowds, the fleeing staff, and the failing foundation may cause Harry and Meghan to come to the realization that the kingdom they sought to build abroad was lost not in the boardrooms of Netflix or the party circuit of Hollywood, but rather in the quiet, unanswered pleas of a frail old man in a hospital bed an ocean away. This realization may come to them as they survey the wreckage of their Hollywood dream. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts and say goodbye for now.